When I discovered all the atheists on YouTube, I was very happy because the mainstream media, despite all the right-wingers' claims that it's a left-wing, anti-Christian cabal, the mainstream media panders to the believer. And it was really good and refreshing to suddenly encounter all these atheist voices when atheist voices have been limited to a few pampered celebrities. But I don't consider myself an atheist, mainly because and I've said this a number of times and run up against people's dictionary-centric insistence that that atheism cannot be a religion. Well, if it's not a religion, then what is it? It's ultimately a description that makes no sense in the absence of the thing it denies. I mean, if you take the theism out of atheism, you're left with fucking A. Well, I guess that's me. I'm fucking A. But agnosticism literally means don't know, and historically means, well, I'm not even going to get into the definitions. I just got sucked into the whole definition debate. What I think is nice about what we can mean when we say agnostic is that you get to imagine stuff without constantly reminding yourself and others that you don't really believe what you're imagining. You get to ask what if. And one of the things that I frequently ask is, what if that mysterious fundamental self-consciousness that science hasn't been able to define accurately, that philosophy hasn't been able to define, and if you think it has, you have a serious intellectual problem. What if my consciousness, my fundamental sensibility, my sense of self, right now, Gary, since I'm talking to you, burn victim, in this instance, what if my fundamental sense of self is you? And what if the Gary burn victim who is looking out at me from behind your eyes is me? With all the experiences of Gary burn victim, and none of my experiences, but me. What if we are all the same person? Does this idea freak you? And in this case, I mean the royal you, everyone watching this. Does this idea freak you out somehow? That we might all be the same person? And if so, why? Why does it freak you out? I mean, we can all contemplate the idea known as solipsism, which is that I think, therefore I am, but I can't be sure of anything else. Everything, you, and you, everyone but me could just be an illusion that I'm having. You know, we can at least contemplate this. We can imagine it. And we can certainly imagine, I doubt there's anybody who hasn't at some point in their life wondered, what would I have been like if I had been born 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago? Or I wonder what it would have been like if I had been born rich, or a starving child in Somalia. We can all say, there but for fortune go you or go I. So what if the fundamental question that transcends religion, that science keeps trying to answer meaningfully and so far has failed, the fundamental mystery of self-consciousness, what this is, this existence that we have, what if it is one thing expressed in 6 billion, 4 billion humans, however many billion there are, and X billion number of different kinds of animals? What if it's all the same consciousness? Well, how could we prove that? That would be the scientific question. How could we test that? And I don't have a clue. And if there's no life after death, and I personally believe there is no life after death, what could it what could it possibly matter? And for the sake of brevity, I'm not even going to contemplate that. But let's say, and I don't believe this, I'm just asking what if. I'm going to say that again, because I think a number of my fellow fucking A's are tuning me out right now. I don't believe this, but let's say, I do not believe in life after death, but let's say there is life after death, and let's say we are all the same person, and then when we die, that person wakes up. We wake up to find that we are all those other people, everyone who has ever lived, that we can see everything that they have seen, do everything that they have done. We have total memory. And let's leave aside for a second what total recollection of everything that has ever happened and ever been perceived might actually mean. Let's just, because we're asking what if we all woke up and found out we were the same person? Well, obviously, in that circumstance, that person would be what religious people mean by God. And I'm not really interested in talking to any religious people other than Christians, because the religions of the East are just not on the same warpath that the Abrahamic faiths are. Judaism is the most important, and in a weird sort of way, the least important of the Abrahamic faiths. And Islam is a subject for a whole other blog, but it is not as important as we are treating it right now. And that's, if I get any feedback for that, then maybe that will kick me in the ass to do a blog about that. So I'm talking to Christians. Christians, I think, certainly doctrinaire Christians, would be very upset by this idea that we are all God. Because God is God and we are us. We are little people who will burn forever in eternal fire, or sing forever in an eternal choir. But we're not God. God is God. God is forever. God is infinite. God is all-knowing and all-good. And we are, sinful little individuals who fear punishment and hope for a blessing. But is that really what you believe? I mean, don't you believe that God knows, sees everything, that he is all-knowing, all-seeing, which means that not only does he know everything that you do and say and think, but everything that you feel. He can see everything that you can see. He is more than you, but he is entirely you. He is entirely everyone, and for that matter, being God, he can do things like see where there is no eye to see, which means that the unfortunate reality for God is that he can see every dump you take from the point of view of the toilet drain. But we certainly don't need to get into that to talk about what I'm talking about. We do know that you believe that God completely inhabits your existence if he's all-knowing. And so then the question becomes, after you die, does that stop? Do individuals become truly individuals, separate from God after they die, when they go to heaven or they go to hell? Or does God continue to experience the unimaginable agony of everyone in hell and the bliss of everyone in heaven? Or is all that meaningless after you die, since supposedly we get some kind of extra special, I don't know for a fact, but I suspect that most Christians think that in heaven there's a little something extra you get in the spiritual department, where all these hopes that you have for an afterlife are just so much more potent than they are. The realization of them is so much more potent than the imagination of them. Maybe that something is the fact that you're God. You're God, and you remember little Violet Kitty and little Jesus Freak, along with everyone else, Hitler, Gandhi. Suddenly you're everybody. And those memories are part and parcel of an infinitely large consciousness. How could it not be that way? And how could God stop being you after you die, if you're still around after you die? And if there were a God, of course, you would still be around after you die, because at the moment of your death, that part of earthly existence that God remembers would come to an end, but it would still exist in God. Does this freak you out? Does this bother you? Is there something wrong with this idea? What's wrong with it? If it bothers you, what's wrong with it? And if it doesn't bother you, then on this point, I am an agnostic. I don't know why this idea affects you the way it does.